Yes, you Sadaloka said, dana means giving or generosity. But I thought, being the Pali nerd that I am, I would look it up in the Pali English dictionary and see what else it said. It was quite a decent article they've got on dana in there. And some of the other words that came up were liberality, so kind of a freeness or an easiness with one's possessions, and also munificence, which I'd never heard before. So that sent me into my other favourite book, which is the English dictionary. And munificence means comes from the Latin munificus, meaning bountiful, which I really like. Bountiful, it's a bounty. And this accords really well. These translations accord really well with what Bhante says about dana in the lecture on being all things to all men, where he outlines the Sangrahavastus. And there's this particular phrase that he uses, which I'll come back to a few times, which is that he says, you might say as a general principle, that a Sangha is characterized by the constant exchange of presence among its members. So I'll say that again. A Sangha is characterized by the constant exchange of presence among its members. And that really got me thinking. So, this idea of dana, this practice of dana, isn't simply a matter of giving, but it's like a constant exchange. It's a sort of atmospheric quality. I think probably the same is true of all of the Sangrahavastus that we're looking at. They all communicate an atmosphere, especially an attractive atmosphere, which is probably why Hataka attracted such a large following. It's an atmosphere of friendship between individuals, which is clearly rooted in the truth. And this constant exchange of presence, I think very much communicates that atmosphere. So I might be so bold as to say, I think dana is probably our most tangible way into enlightenment. It's our most tangible way into enlightenment. Insofar as one can have a tangible experience of enlightenment or the transcendental, this is it, and that's probably why it occurs often at the beginning of lists, because it is so tangible. And I think it's tangible from at least two different directions. It's tangible from the perspective of the people who are participating in this constant exchange of presence. That sort of liberality, that freeness, that easiness, that softening of the barriers between ourselves and others, which occurs when we are in this flow of dana, I think is a very concrete way into what it must be like to be the Buddha. That's my hypothesis that I'll put to you. That through dana we get our most tangible experience of the transcendental through doing it. But I think also from the perspective of an observer, and this is perhaps where it becomes sort of more characteristically a Sangrahavastu, that actually to witness that kind of atmosphere, to see other people relating in that kind of way, communicates very tangibly, very concretely what the spiritual community is about. What the goal of a spiritual community is. I think it's very easy with particularly with concepts like nirvana or insubstantiality, no self, shunyata, all these kind of very lofty conceptual ways of talking about enlightenment. It's very easy to misconstrue them nihilistically. Whereas I think with dana, and with what I'm describing, what Bhante is describing as this constant exchange of presence, it's so positive, it's got so few conceptual moving parts that it's very difficult to misconstrue in that way. It's just a positive, attractive, ordinary enough way into enlightenment. And I think that it's to see that it's like, oh yeah, no, that's the kind of community I want to be a part of. That's what I want to be about. Those are the kinds of people I want to be around. Like, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, because that's what I want. So I think dharana offers both for the participant and also for the observer, just such a clear communication of the best of the goal of Buddhist life. I really hope you've experienced something of what I'm describing, and hopefully you'll get a chance in the discussion group to talk about that as well, because it's just revisiting that, reliving that is in itself a very important practice, I think. So I also want to talk about what I think are 3 near enemies of dharana as a Sangrahavastu. I really like the teaching of the near enemies. I think it offers such a neat way of drawing conceptual distinctions. So I'm going to apply it in this case. And yeah, I've come up with 3. You might want to come up with more as well. I'm sure there are more. So my first near enemy of dharana is, let me see if I can get this right. It's seeing dharana as discrete, perfunctory acts of giving. I'll say that again: discrete, perfunctory acts of giving. What I mean by this is a working ground for me. So what I mean by this is, say it's somebody's birthday, and you get them a present, or maybe you just get them a card, and you sort of hand it over, or you send it off in the post, and you think, all right, good, done. I've got their birthday out of the way, and yeah, so this is obviously antithetical to this constant exchange, this flow of presents. The idea that we've kind of done dharana is a misconception. Yes, there may be there may be sort of discrete gifts and acts of giving which comprise that, but that's not the end of it. I'm also reminded in this connection, I don't know when this will happen, at some point when you're doing these Zoom meetings and a little link appears in the chat box, it normally includes the word PayPal, and you kind of click on it and key in your details. It's like, oh yeah, I've done my dharana. I've done my dharana for this session. I can sort of put my feet up. No, yeah, dharana is, as I say, it's entering into this flow, and it may be that once we've given in that way, we seek other ways that we can be giving. I think that requires probably a bit more creativity over Zoom, but certainly in more face-to-face sanghas, that's opportunity should abound for that. In fact, it is possible over Zoom. It really is. We were doing an introductory course in Oxford before Christmas, and there was a real atmosphere of giving in that, and all of that was over Zoom. So yeah, we overcome that by looking for creative ways of continuing to give. Those acts in themselves are very important. They're very valuable. They're essential to the smooth running of a sangha and a relationship. But they're kind of the entry level dharana. This flow is beyond those discrete perfunctory acts of giving. The next near enemy that I've come up with is giving with strings attached. Giving with strings attached, and often we don't know that there are strings attached until we don't get what we think is on the end of the string. If that makes sense, so we're sort of expecting a particular train of rewards to play out for us, and it doesn't. And in that experience of resentment, we can be provided with an opportunity of becoming aware of, okay, this was where I was attaching a string to this. In terms of its opposite, I'm reminded of a story of Vajragupta. That's Vajragupta brackets M. There's a Vajragupta brackets F as well. So this Vajragupta was a chair of the Birmingham Buddhist Centre some years ago, and was from all accounts, I wasn't around at the time, but from all accounts, he was extremely innovative, extremely energetic. I think in addition to being the chair of that centre, he set up something like 4 other groups, some of which have become centres as well. So a real tremendous energy and put a tremendous act of giving on his part towards that centre. But I recall him saying that he returned after some years to the Birmingham Buddhist Centre. Obviously, there was a class going on at the time, and the person who welcomed him to the door, was very welcoming and so on. But they said, "Oh, is this your first time here?" I mean, I know Prajnaketu fairly well. I can just imagine him sort of softening at that point, softening, and a sort of smile coming on his face. And of course, he would have said, "No, I have been here before, actually," But the way he tells the story, and just knowing him, it's so obvious that he wasn't expecting a big kind of rolling out of the red carpet and a fanfare, or his sort of name above the door, embossed. His attitude to giving is just he gives. He just gives, and so there isn't an expectation there of a particular reward or a particular sort of sort of receiving something. Now, it's worth saying, I think that there is a role for relationships like that, where it is more transactional. That's business. We call that business. Dana is something where we're just giving, and we're doing so naturally. I think Bhante even uses this word. It's a natural expression of who we are and our values, and whether that comes back to us in a particular way or other. Well, it may do, it may not. Dana isn't focusing on those. It doesn't have them in there. Yep. Okay, so the third near enemy is being a passive consumer. Being a passive consumer, and I know all about this. I grew up in the 1990s, and it's all about passive consumption. But that was my attitude that I brought to coming along to Buddhist activities in the first place. That I had a very clear criterion for where to go, and that was that it was the nearest place that I could meditate for free. Or at least with other people, the nearest place where I could meditate with other people for free. I did, I sort of put my perfunctory bit of donation in the jar on the way out, but really that's what I was looking for, a sort of a service provider. In other words, I was relating to the Sangha as a service provider. And I think probably a lot of us do start off like that, actually. And I think it's fine within the Sangha that we accommodate people who are just dipping in and seeing what it's about and making up their mind about it. But the irony is that by being a passive consumer, we miss out on the goods. But by relating to the Sangha as a kind of purveyor of, I don't know, sort of low cost spiritual services, we miss out on we miss out on karma, effectively. The real goods of the Dharma life emerge from our volitional actions, emerge from us being proactive. And so I think it's ever so important that we create context within our sanghas where people can do that. So if I was going to be a bit provocative, I might say that I think we have a responsibility as sanghas to be inefficient. In other words, to not be so slick that everything is completely dealt with, but rather that there are gaps where people can meaningfully contribute. Not just sort of do things that I don't know. Well, I'm not sure what I'm trying to contrast it with, but it needs to be something meaningful. And I think I didn't begin to transcend this passive consumption idea until I started up running activities in Oxford with Sangharuchi, however long ago it was, when I saw actually a huge amount goes into even just putting on an evening. And there it was like, from there the karma niyama, as it were, kind of kicked in, and I started to really get what Sangha was. So yeah, I think this again is it's a near enemy. It's a near enemy. It's probably a near enemy which, because we relate to so much, especially through our screens, in terms of just receiving rather than contributing, it can be very easy to fall into. So I'm just going to see whether there's anything else I wanted to say. Okay, so there's the bit about dana. If you like, the ideal of dana is this, this constant exchange of presence, this flow of generosity, of largesse, of munificence, to use those sort of words, which has an atmosphere which communicates the goal of the spiritual life. And then there are these three near enemies, what I've called discrete perfunctory acts of giving, giving with strings attached, and then passive consumption. So what I propose we do as we move into the discussion groups is, well, I want to offer you some questions. You can choose to take these up or not, but I'll give you some questions to look at. So the first question is, have you experienced this kind of flow of generosity? And if so, what was that like? Have you experienced that flow of generosity? And if so, what was it like? My second question is, where do you see these near enemies in your own experience? Where do you see these near enemies in your own experience? And the third is, what are you going to do about it? So yeah, the third is, insofar as you see these near enemies in your experience, how are you relating to that? How are you going to change that? Thanks, tech support. Okay, that's me. Thank you for listening, and I'll hand back to Sadaloka.